We'll begin the Gemara today on Daf Fayanei Amud Aleph, 10 lines from the top of the Amud, where it says Rava Omar. This is a second answer to a question the Gemara asked before. There's a stira between two braises. In one braisa it says a person marries his wife with the condition that she has no nedarim, and then she had a neder, but she went to a chacham and she uprooted the neder. So the first braisa says that the marriage takes effect because the chacham uproots it from retroactively. Second brisa says even if she goes to a chacham and he uproots the neder, still eina mukadeshes. So before, Rabbi gave an answer that it's a machlekes Tanoim, Rab Meir and Rabbi Lazar, if a person is ready for his wife to have to go through this or not. Rabbi gives a different answer. Let's see. Rabbi says, Hacha b'isha chashuva askinan. In the brisa where it says that even if she's going to be matta the neder by a chacham, nevertheless, he's not interested in being married to her. The reason is because it's the isha chashuva. The Amar, and therefore the husband says, Le'nichali de itze b'krevisel. I'm not interested to become aser to her relatives. Which means that even if we're going to say that the Gemara before brought that a person doesn't mind that his wife would go and be matta the neder, but over here what this person can say is, I'm not interested in a wife that makes nedarim. Fine, she could be matta the neder, but I'm not interested in having a wife that makes nedarim. Are you going to say, so if so, just give her a get? The fact is now she doesn't have a neder, so give her a get. No, we say even more so. He's not interested in the marriage taking effect and then having to give her a get, because then he won't be able to get married to any of her relatives. And she comes from a very good family. Rashi says this is a bas gedolim. So if she comes from such a family, he doesn't want to now be in a position where he can't marry any of her relatives. So therefore over here, the moment we see that she's a woman that makes nedarim, he doesn't want this marriage to take effect altogether, and he shouldn't have to give her a get. So if he wants, he can marry her relatives. If that's the pshat, Sefer diktoni. In that beraisa, in the Sefer, it says as follows: what happens if the case was the opposite? She's the one that made a condition with him. She said that I'll only be married to you on condition that you have no mum or you have no neder. So there the beraisa continues and says that if he goes to a chacham and is matter the neder, or he went to a doctor and he healed himself from a mum that he has, mukadeshas. So the kedushin does take effect. So the beraisa is making a chiluk between a case where she's the one that had the mum or she's the one that had the neder. Then even if she healed herself or the chacham was mater, she's not mukadeshas. With the husband, if he was mater the neder, if he healed himself, he will be mukadeshas. But the question is, why should we make any chiluk between him and her? Lisni and mukadeshas, shouldn't it say that the halacha is the same thing? That she will not be mukadeshes if the condition she made with him is not fulfilled. And v'leime, she should say to her husband the exact same thing we said before, that hachabad muchashav askinon, if the reisha of this braisa is talking about a woman that comes from a distinguished family, so on the Sefer, it's also talking about a person that comes from a chashav family, and the Amra, she says, Le'nichali the itze b'kreve. I don't want this condition to take effect and now get a get, and then I can't marry any of his relatives. So therefore, she can. This is a tiny. She can say that the whole kedushin doesn't take effect in the first place. So the kitzur, the Gemara's question is, what's the difference between this situation between the husband and the wife? And for the Gemara, this is a svara the Gemara says many times, when it comes to a wife, she's ready to live with a husband of any sort, even if it's someone that it's difficult to live with. Nevertheless, she made a condition that she doesn't want him to have a neder. Nevertheless, we know that she's ready to live with a husband, even kolduhu, and whatever the condition is. Where do we see this concept? Reish Lakish. This is like something that Reish Lakish taught. Reish Lakish says, Tav lemesav tandu. A woman says it's better for me to live with another individual, in other words, two bodies, not to be lonely, milamesav armalu, than to live like an almana. Armalu means alone, like an almana, when I'm not with someone else. So for a woman to be married, even if she did make a condition, and it turns out that her husband did not fulfill the condition, but then he went and he healed himself, or he went to chacham and he was matter the neder, she's okay, she'd be ready to live with him. Gemara now brings a few statements of Amirayim that said this point of Reish Lakish to a very strong extent. Abaya says, the Shum Shemina Gavra, even if a woman's husband is a shumshana, he's a midget, like a little ant. Nevertheless, she's happy about this because she places a chair for him amongst the noble men, and he can sit, her husband can sit there amongst them, and this makes her happy about this. Or actually, I'm sorry, Rashi says that she places here her own chair, that is, between the noble women, and she sits amongst them, and she's proud of herself. Look, I'm married like you. Even though, who's she married to? She's married to some little midget. Another thing, Rav Papa says, the nafsa gavra, a person has a husband, a woman has a husband, and he does dirty jobs. He does a job of cleaning the filth out of the wool after it's cut from the animal. But still, she's happy to be married to him. And tikre b'seife bave v'teisev. She'll call him to the opening by the door of her house, and she'll sit there with him openly in public. Everybody should see that she's married to him. Ravashi said, the kalsa gavra, a man that comes from not a good family. Nevertheless, she treats him very well. She's not even going to ask him to give her lentils to add into the pot of soup. In other words, she's not going to place any pressure on him. She's going to treat him very nicely and well because she's so happy to be married to him. Tana, but the Braisa concludes, what's really behind all of this? Why is a woman there happy to have this husband that she lives with, even though it's really a person that she can't live with? The reason is because all these women, they're mezana, they have a relation with someone else. And then if they give birth to a child, it's easier for them to say that this is a kosher child, because look, I'm married and this child was born from my husband. That's the reason why they're happy to have this husband that they're married to. Going back to the Mishnah, it said, Kol mumen shepaislam v'chulu, the Mishnah said, when it comes to the mumen that passel a kayin from doing the aveda, those are the mumen as well, that if there was a condition made that he's marrying his wife, that she does not have any mumen, so what mum does that include? All the mumen that apply to a kayin doing the aveda. That he can't do the aveda, so to over here, he will not be married to her if she has such a mum. So the Gemara says, Tana, we learned in the Braisa, Isifu Aleyen, they did add by women more than by the kayinim certain things that a husband can't live with. Zeya, if she's sweating constantly, Vishuma, a mole, and Vereach hapeh, a bad odor from the mouth. And Vahani, and those are the things that the husband can say he can't live with them. But is it true that you're saying that this is something that they added and it only applies to a wife, but by Kainim this will not pass like Kainim from doing the Aveda? But Vatnan, we learned in the Mishnah regarding the Kainim, Azakim, or this is actually, first this is a Mishnah that says regarding an animal. If the moment that applied to an animal being brought as a carbon. So Azakin, an animal that's old and frail, Va'achayla, sick, Va'amazum, and very filthy. So those things are considered to be a mum for an animal, to be brought as a carbon. And on that Mishnah it says as well, that mumen elu, these mumen, bein kvuin, bein oivrin, whether they're mumen that are established, in other words, they're there permanently, and bein oivrin, whether it's mumen that could be healed, nevertheless, psulim ba'adam, by a kayin, by a human being that wants to do the Aveda, these three things will be possible. He won't be able to do the Aveda. So one of the things that it says here is mezuim, filthy. So now the Gemara understands that mezuim and zeya are a similar thing. A person that sweats constantly, that's the same like mezuim, a person that's filthy and unclean. So how can we say that this is a kind of a mum that does not apply to a kain? So he answers like kasha. It's not a question. Kan bezeya iveres. Here it's talking about a sweat that a person can just wash off with water. And kan bezeya she'enei iveres. And here we're talking about a situation that it cannot be washed off. So if it cannot be washed off, so then by a kayin he'll be possible to do the aveda. But by a woman, we add that even in a case where it can be washed off, but nevertheless because she sweats constantly, so it's going to be a mum. It's considered to be a mum for the husband. That's one pshat in the Gemara here. Taisa speaks about this. He gives two pshat in the Gemara, but this is one pshat in the Gemara here.
It's a grounds for divorce.
Yeah. Ravashi says that Bechlal, the whole comparison, it's not talking about the same thing. Zeya, Amazuim, Karamis. You're asking a question from what we said that regarding Zeya, a wife that sweats profusely, is something which is a mum. And from there you're asking from what it says by a kayin, Mizuim, that he's filthy. It's not the same thing altogether. Hasam gabi kayinim, over there by the kayinim, efshala avra b'kiyua de chamra. It's possible to remove the filth with kiyua de chamra, some wine vinegar. So this is therefore when it comes a time that he has to do the aveda, he'll remove this filth or the sweat. Umerecha penami, similar, the bad odor of the mouth. So the reason why it's not a psul for a mum for a kayin, after the knocket pilpula bepume, he can place some kind of a pilpula, some kind of a sharp pepper or whatever it is. I mean, today you could take a mint or whatever and put it in your mouth, and then he'll do the aveda. So that's not a mum. Gabi isha, but when it comes to a wife, lo yafsha. We can't. A husband can't rely on that. Why? So Rashi here says the reason is because a person is speaking to his wife all the time, and a woman can't say, when I'll talk to my husband, then I'll remove the sweat or the filth. Or when I'll talk to my husband, then the woman. He's talking to his wife all the time. So therefore, he can say he can't live with her. Wow. Hi shuma. Well, so one of the things that we mentioned before is a shuma, a mole. What kind of a mole are we talking about? Hey chidamya. If this is a mole that also has hairs growing from it, so hacha pasla. This should be a psul both for a wife that he can say he can't live with a woman with this kind of a mole, and for kain as well, it's a psul. The Gemara is soon going to bring a brisa that says this. If it's a mole that has no hairs, so now ishum if it's a large mole, pasla. So both for kain and for a wife, there should be a psul. If it's a small mole, so then in both cases it shouldn't be an issue, not for the aveda and not for a wife when she's married. The Gemara will soon give the shear of what's large and what's small. Now the Tanya, we learned this in a brayse. Shuma sheyesh baseir, a mole that has hairs. Harei zamum, so that's a mum. A kain can't do the aveda. Ein baseir, there's no hairs growing there. So then gedayla, if it's a large mole, harei zamum, it still is a mum. Ketana, a small mole, ein zamum. If that's not considered to be a mum. Now veize gedayla, what's considered to be a large mole? Pirish, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel explained, at ki iser oyitalki, up to the size of a iser oyitalki, which is a pretty small coin. That's considered still to be a small mole. But if it's larger than this, that's a large mole. So, Eizihi Gedayla? Sorry, if it's Gedayla is up to the size of an Israel Talki, but it's smaller than Israel Talki, then it's considered to be small. So, Bekitzer, the point is we see over here, when it comes to a mole, the Brisa makes very clear that there's this big, there's small, there's with hairs, without hairs. So, in what case are we making a distinction between a wife and a kayin? Rabbi Chanina answers that over here by the wife, even if it's small, he still cannot be married to her because he says, by medas al padachta, this is a mole that's right there on her forehead, that it's exposed, and that's something that he can't live with his wife having such a kind of a mole. But if it's pedachta, rav, and if she has this mole on her forehead, he must have seen this before they got married, and he was appeased. In other words, he accepted it. So how could he, pedachta is a forehead. So how could we say that in such a case, he could claim that he can't live with his wife? So Rav Papa said, the case is, by medas latachas kippah shel reisha, the case is that it is on the forehead, but it gets covered by the covering of her head. Sometimes he notices it and sometimes not. So over here, it's possible that he didn't notice before he married her that she has this mole, but then when he sees she has it, since it's right there on the forehead, it's something that the husband can say that he can't live with. Rav Chizda said, I heard this halacha from a great person. Umanu, who's this great person? Rab Shila. What did he say? Noshcha kelev, if a dog that is, bites his wife, and the area is a scar. After it heals, is a scar that stays from that bite. That's a mum, that if a husband discovers his wife has this mum, he can say that he can't live with this mum.
It's in the lower part of the body.
No. It doesn't say which part of the body. It doesn't say anywhere. Okay. It seems from the Gemara anywhere. Rav Chizda said another halacha regarding a mum, koil ava be'isha, a wife that has a thick voice like a man, harei zemo. That's also considered to be a mum. Shenema, as the pasuk says, ki koilech orev umarach nova. Your voice is sweet and your appearance is beautiful. So the voice of a wife that has a feminine voice, that's something that you can have a taina about. Tani Rav Nosson Beira taught another halacha regarding the mum of an isha. Bein dade isha tefach. If there's space between the breasts of a woman in the size of a tefach, so he learned in the Braise that this is something that applies to the halachas of a mum by a wife. And it wasn't spelled out whether this is a mum or is it not a mum. So the Gemara brings there two opinions. The Sava, Rav Ache, Berei, the Rav Kameh, the Rav Ashi Lemeima. So he thought, and he taught this in front of Rav Ashi, and he thought that what this is saying is that tefach l'mal yusa. He was saying that there is a tefach of a space, then it's good. In other words, it's not a mum. That's what he meant to teach. Amalei Ravashi, but Ravashi explained to him, no. This is actually a brisa that was taught as one of the mumen of a woman. That if there's that space of a tefach, then it is considered to be a mum. So Tanya in a brisa we learned v'kama. So what is the ordinary space that is not going to be considered a mum? Abaye says shalosh it's boys. If there are 3 finger breaths, that's considered to be normal. Up to that point of 3 finger breaths is normal and is not a mum. Tanya in another brisa we learned, Rav Nasan said, Kol isha shedadeh gasen mishal chavreisel. If she has breasts that are larger than her friends, then harei a mum. So therefore, it's considered to be a mum. V'kama, and the question is, how large is it considered to be a mum? Omer Rav Meishe or Miyashe bar berei de Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi mishmei de Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the name of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, tefach. If it's a tefach larger than the way it is usually by the women. Frek the Gemara, tefach is pretty big. Is it possible such a kind of a mum that a woman has the dad and the breasts that are so large? We're coming to say that this is a mum. Answers the Gemara in, yes, we find such a thing, it's possible. The Amar Rabba Babachana said, Ani Reisi Arvi Achas. I saw an Arab woman, Shev Shila Dadala Chirel, that she took her breasts to behind her, vehinikes bana, and that's how her son was fed. So it is, so such a thing is possible, and that's the halacha that it's teaching here, that in such a case it will be considered to be a mum.
What about the opposite, if they're very small?
The Gemara doesn't discuss that, okay. I don't know. Now, the Gemara brings another drasha, which is not related to what we spoke about, but it's in the name, the same I'm saying it, so the Gemara brings it here. It says in the pasuk, Ulitziyin Yeyama. It's said to Tziyin, to the Yidden, Ish ve'ish yulad ba, the man and the man that's born here, v'hu yechayinel elyoin, and he, the Eibishter, will establish Eretz Yisrael again. So this is promising the Yidden that the Eibishter will rebuild Eretz Yisrael, will rebuild Yerushalayim. So Omer Rav Miyashe bar berei de Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Why does it say a double lashon? Ish ve'ish. Echad ha'noilad ba. This refers to both somebody that's born in Eretz Yisrael, ve'echad ha'mitzapel eraisa, and also someone that was not even born there, but someone that is awaiting to see the rebuilding of Yerushalayim, of the Beis HaMikdash. So he's going to be zeicha to see the rebuilding of it, and that it's going to be established again. That's the double lashon of ish ve'ish. I saw a beautiful story about this Gemara over here, in the time of the Rogatchover. So there was maybe it was under the Turkish rule, I don't remember exactly. So there was a certain point that you had to register, in order to be able to live there in Yerushalayim, you had to register with the government under oath and declare under oath that you were born here. And if you weren't born here, they would dispel you. They would send you away. They would no, what's the word? Expel you. I meant to say, sorry. Yeah. So the Eden didn't know. Should they declare under oath that they were born there? There were many that weren't. How could they say this with a shvur, a lie? So the Rogatchover says, he gave one answer. He says, Kesubos ayin hey. Look right over here in the Gemara. What does it say? Both a person that's born there and a person that's mitzapel l'ra'isa, and he's awaiting to see its rebuilding, the pasuk says on him, yulad ba, that it's as if he was born there in Eretz Yisrael. So they could declare under oath that they were born there. Very beautiful story. Okay, the Gemara continues and says, Omer Abaye. But Abaye said, V'chad minayu, one of them, in other words, one of the Chachamim of Eretz Yisrael, Adif Ketrei Minan. He's as powerful, he's doubly as smart in his learning of Torah, and he's like 2 of us living here in Bavel. The Eretz Yisrael, the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, and so on, gives them a koyach to have a double koyach in their learning of Torah than us. But Rave then said, the Chad Minan. However, if one of us here in Bavel, Kisalik lahasam, when he goes to Eretz Yisrael, then Adif Ketrei Minayu. Then he will become actually doubly as smart in his learning of Torah than the people that are there from before in Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara brings the example for this, the Rabbi Yirmiyah, as we find regarding Rabbi Yirmiyah. The Chiyav HaHacha, when he was here, living in Bavel, he couldn't understand what the Rabbana was saying, and he kept on asking questions. There's a famous stories about Rabbi Yirmiyah. He asked all kinds of questions. The Gemara in Baba Basra says that at a certain point, they took him out of the Beis Medrash. They didn't allow him in because he was asking so many questions. But then, Kisalek Lahasam, when he came to Eretz Yisrael, Karilan Bavloi Tipshoi, Rabbi Yirmiyah looked back at his old friends in Babel, and he said, my friends in Babel, they're fools. And that's something that only Rabbi Yirmiyah said. The other Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael did not refer to the Yidden in Babel as fools. So that shows because once Rabbi Yirmiyah came to Eretz Yisrael, he became doubly as smart even than the Chachamim that were in Eretz Yisrael itself. And in the Shittim Bekebetzes, he brings from the Rishayim 2 reasons why that is. One is because the emphasis is that the way of learning in Babel was with more charifis, it was with more depth. and analyzing more than in Eretz Yisrael. As we see the difference between Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. However, there's still an advantage of the learning in Eretz Yisrael because of the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. But when you combine the two, you came from Bavel and you have the style of learning of Bavel, and now you come to Eretz Yisrael and you have the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, then you become doubly as smart as those that are in Eretz Yisrael. Another pshat is that those that come from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, so they have more of an excitement by taking from this Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Someone that's born there, has lived there and raised there, so he doesn't take as much from that Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Someone that comes from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, so it's more of a Chiddush to him, he's able to get more from the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, and he becomes doubly as smart in his learning Torah of even those Chachamah that were there before. Mishnah, continuing the halachas we learned before about the person that married his wife and he discovers that she has mumin. So here the Mishnah will discuss a situation where there's an argument. Exactly when is it that she got these mumin? Now it makes a huge difference if the mumin are there from before marriage or the mumin only came out after marriage. A husband can have no tightness against his wife and say that I'm going to divorce you or that I'm not going to give you ksubah if the mumin came out later. That's his bad luck. He married her and she had no mum. But if the mum were there before and he made a condition that she has no mum, or even if he made no condition, he doesn't have to give her a ksubah if it turns out that she has a mum that he didn't realize. So then it's a taina. So here the question is, what happens in a situation where there's an argument? When exactly she got these mumin? So now, if she has a mum on her body and she's still living by her father's house, meaning it's already after the first stage of marriage, which is the Eidisin, but at that point she's still living in her father's house. So over here, the father is gonna have to prove that it's after the Eidisin that she got these mumin, and then and therefore she can turn to her husband, or the father really. The father is the one that gets the money of the ksubah at this point. After Eidisin, it's not full marriage. Really, it's all between the father of the girl, of the wife, and the husband. Because if she gets divorced, who gets the ksuba money? The father. So in such a case, the father says to the husband, that it's your field that got flooded. It's an expression. What he's saying is, he's going to prove the fact that she got the woman after the Eidisin, and therefore the Kedushin took effect. She had no woman at that point, and now the fact that she got a mum now, that's your bad luck. So if you want to divorce her, you're going to have to give a ksuba. But if it's already after the full marriage and she enters into the home, into the possession of the husband, so then habal tzarich lavi raya, and now he sees that she has mumin, so we're going to assume that the mumin that happened here now after she already got married. So if the husband wants to claim that she had the mumin from before and therefore the marriage will never take effect, or even if it does, he doesn't want to give her the ksubah, so the husband's going to have to bring a raya that she had these mumin already from before the marriage, and therefore the whole marriage is a mistake. If he made a condition that he doesn't want to have any mumin, so the whole thing was a mistake. He's going to have to prove that she had the mumin from before. This is Rav Meir's opinion. The Chachamim say, when could the husband come and argue and say regarding these mumin that the mumin were there already from before, and therefore the whole thing is a mekach tos? And those kinds of blemishes that she may have that are in a concealed place in her body, that the husband would have no way of knowing about this. If it's kinds of blemishes that are open, exposed for him to see, so then any yachalitin. We don't accept any arguments that he says that he didn't accept her marrying her in this way, so it's a mekach tos. It's open for him to see. So he must have accepted it. Now, however, if this city where they're getting married has a public bathhouse, so then even those kinds of blemishes that are in concealed places in her body, nevertheless the husband will not be able to argue that I did not know about these women and I never got married with this conditions, seeing these women here. And the reason you can't say this, because a husband, that is, will examine his to-be wife by having his relatives, the female relatives that are with her with the bathhouse, that sees if she has these mumin or not. So therefore you can't have any tinus when it gets discovered later. Okay, so now this Mishnah here made a distinction. At what point were these mumin discovered? Were they discovered after the Eidisin when she's living in the father's house? So then the Mishnah says the father's going to be the one that's going to have to prove that the mumin happened after the Kiddushin, or if the mumin were discovered after full marriage, when she's already in the husband's house, that is, so then the husband's going to have to prove that the mumin were there from before. What is the reason for this distinction? Based on why, what's the svara to be mechalik at what point these mumim were discovered? So the Gemara starts off with a Mishnah. This sugya here is a very deep sugya, and it's a continuation of a sugya that we learned in the first Pedic. So now, Taime the Maisia Avraya. So what does it say over here in the first part of the Mishnah? That if the father brings a raya that the mumin happened from before, so then I say that he can argue, he brought a proof that the mumin were there from before, so he could say that, again, let me start again. Taimi the Maisia Avraya, the father brought a raya that the mumin were there later, correct? Right, the father brought a raya that was there later, so in such a case the father could say, it's your field that got flooded. It's your bad luck. But if the father does not bring any rayas that it happened afterwards, we're going to say that the husband's going to be believed to say that the mum was there before, and therefore he doesn't have to give her the ksubah money. Says the Gemara, Mani, who is our Mishnah going according to in this first part of the Mishnah? The Reisha, Rabbi Yeshua, it's following Rabbi Yeshua's opinion. What did Rabbi Yeshua say? The Amar, Loi mipia anu chayim. We do not live from the words of our mouth. What was Rabbi Yeshua speaking about? So we had this in the first Pedic. Rabbi Yeshua is speaking about a case where the husband and wife are arguing regarding her status as a b'sula. The husband marries her, and it turns out that she's not a b'sula. The question is, when did she lose her status of being a b'sula? So the wife says, I was a b'sula when I married you. I only became not a b'sula later, after I married you. The husband says, no. Already when by the Kedushin, you were not a b'sula anymore. So therefore the whole thing is a mekach ta'as. I don't have to give you anything for the ksubah. So what does it say? So basically, what does this argument revolve around here? Rabbi Yeshua says, Loi mipia anu chayim. We do not accept what she is saying. And the reason is because the husband has a cheskas mamin. The money is in his possession, and therefore, until she proves it, she can't take any money out of his possession. On the other hand, if you remember, we learned Rabbi Gamliel says no, she has a cheskas aguf. The cheskas aguf says that she's born as a basula, so therefore she can say, based on my cheskas aguf, I was married as a basula. The fact that you see now that I'm not a basula, that happened at a later point. So therefore, you owe me the ksubah of the money. So there's an argument, what is stronger, the cheskas mamain or the cheskas haguf? So over here in the Mishnah where it says that we believe the husband, as long as the father didn't bring a raya, that the woman came later, we believe the husband. Why are we believing the husband? That the women were there before. So apparently we're not following cheskas haguf. If you would follow cheskas haguf, the girl is not born with these women. We're not going to assume that a girl is born with these women. Elamai, we're following Rabbi Yeshua that says you got to go with the cheskas mamain. The husband is the one that has the money in his pocket, and therefore, unless the father, which wants this ksuba money, is going to prove that the mum happened at a later point, we're going to follow the status of what the husband says that the women were there from before, and he has the cheskas mamain. He can keep the money in his pocket. That's what we see from the Reisha of the Mishnah. Now, but what does it say? The next case of the Mishnah, once she's already fully married and she's in the husband's possession, so Habal tzarech lahavi raya. So now it's the husband that's going to have to prove that the mum happened before, and he can keep his money. He doesn't have to give it the ksubah. So over here, taime the maisia bal raya. So this is only going to work if the husband's going to have edim. He's going to have edim that are going to say that they know for a fact that they saw that she had a mum from before. If the husband will not bring a raya, so over here we're going to trust the father. And what's the father saying? That my daughter is born healthy. My daughter has a cheskas haguf, that she has no mum, and therefore the mum happened later. So this is following the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel. Asan le Rabbi Gamliel. So this is Rabbi Gamliel's opinion. Rabbi Gamliel says that the cheskas haguf is stronger than the cheskas mamain. There's a cheskas haguf that says that she had no mum before, and therefore she was probably married without a mum, and the mum came out later. So basically, like I said in the beginning, the Gemara is really asking, what's the svara to make a distinction between the Reisha, where the mumma was discovered when she was still in the father's house, and the Seifa, when the mumma was discovered when she's already fully married in the husband's house. The only thing that should matter is, do we look at cheskas haguf, or do we look at cheskas mamain? So if you look at cheskas haguf, in both cases, you should follow the cheskas haguf, and then we'll say that the mum probably came later. Or you look at cheskas mamain, and cheskas mamain says, prove that you didn't have a mum before, and then I'll pay you the money. So why is our Mishnah making this distinction? Amar Rabbi Lazar, so Rabbi Lazar answers and says, you're right, this is a very strong question. Tavra, this is a contradiction of the two cases of the Mishnah here. Misha shanazu loy shanazu. The one that taught the Reisha of the Mishnah is not the same Tana that's teaching the Seif of the Mishnah. You cannot put these two halachas together. They're taka contradiction. Okay, Tosfos over here gets into this more in detail because it's very, very, very difficult answer to give, because then what it says in the Reisha, what it says in the Sefer, it wouldn't be necessary to say here the mum was discovered in the husband's house, here or in the Reisha in the father's house, in the Sefer, here it was discovered in the husband's house. Basically what we're saying is, it doesn't matter where and when it was discovered. It's just a question of whether you look at the chazaka of the guf or the chazaka of the mamein. That's what he's saying over here. Okay, but Tosfos discusses this. Well, this is one answer. Now, the Gemara interjects and says like this. Omar Rava said. Now, in the simple pshat of the Gemara, Rava here is going to give an explanation for Rabbi Yeshua's opinion that says that you follow Cheskas Mamein and not Cheskas Agov, and he's going to clarify what Rabbi Yeshua's opinion is. And in the simple pshat, this is not directly related to the content of our sugya. But some Rishonim say that this is an introduction to the answer that Rava is going to give soon for the Mishnah, that we don't have to break the Mishnah apart and say that it's two different Tanoim. So here's what Rava said. Loi teime, don't think as follows, that Rabbi Yeshua loi ozl basa chazaka de gufa klal. That Rabbi Yeshua never follows the chazaka of the body that she has, right? But what's Rabbi Yeshua saying here? That we follow the cheskas mamay. The husband could say, prove that you didn't have these women before, and then I'll pay you. In other words, Rabbi Yeshua seemingly is ignoring the cheskas aguf. She's born with a cheskas aguf that she has no woman, so why should she have to prove it? So, but don't think that Rabbi Yeshua disregards cheskas aguf altogether. Rather, Kili Azar Rabbi Yeshua basa chazaka de gufa. When does Rabbi Yeshua say that you don't follow cheskas aguf? Hechidika chazaka de memayna. That's in such a kind of situation, because against the cheskas aguf, the husband is the one that has the money in his pocket. So he's holding on to the money. So over here, we don't pay attention to the cheskas aguf. But if there's no chazaka of the money that is in his pocket, that is going against the chazaka of the guf, so then also Rabbi Yeshua was chazaka the gufa. Rabbi Yeshua would also admit and agree that you go after the chazaka of the body. The chazaka of the body is definitely a very powerful chazaka. The Tanan, that's the girsa it's supposed to be here. There's a Mishnah that says regarding the halachas of a nega. So the Mishnah says that in Beheres Kaidim L'Seir Lavan. Tomei, the halacha of a nega is, so a nega, of course, is when there's a white stain on the person's body. That's the basic existence of a nega. But then there's another sign that the nega has to have, a siman, in order for it to be tomei, and that is it has to have white hairs. So this Mishnah says that only if the whiteness on the body came before the white hairs, so then tomei, so then the white hairs will be a sign of tumah. But in Seir Lavan Kaidin Lebeheres, if the hairs were white already from before, and then the whiteness of the nega appears, tahir. So in such a case, it'll be tahir. It's not a nega. Safik, if it's unclear what came first, the beheres, the whiteness, or the white hairs, so then tamei. In such a case, we're going to be machmer and say that the person will be tamei. This is the Tanna Kama. Not so simple to understand why the Tanna Kama says this, because l'chayre, every person, if you do not yet know that he has a nega, has a cheskas tara. So why would we, in a case of a suffix, say that he should be tamei with this nega? Okay, there's different pirushim in the Rishonim exactly when the Tanna Kama says this. Some say that it's only in a situation where he already had some chazaka of a tumah from before. Now, Rabbi Yeshua, however, Rabbi Yeshua says, keha, that in such a situation, when it's a suffix regarding this nega, so then we say keha. Now, my keha, what does keha mean? So keha literally means that it's considered to be dim, meaning, so he explains, keya toy. The expression of keya means that she will be toy. Because we have a suffix about this nega, so what do? What's basically Rabbi Yeshua saying? We follow cheskas aguf. This person has a cheskas aguf that he's toy. So therefore we see clearly that Rabbi Yeshua also follows cheskas aguf. The only reason he doesn't follow cheskas aguf is in a case where you have a cheskas mama that goes against cheskas aguf. Okay, so as I mentioned, according to some Rishonim, this piece of Gemara here is an introduction to the following piece that the Gemara is going to explain that Rabbi Yeshua also holds of Cheskas Aguf, but not always. It will depend on the situation. Just like we saw that Mamain will be able to go against Cheskas Aguf, that is a Cheskas Mamain goes against a Cheskas Aguf. So now, Rava, based on this, will give an answer regarding our Mishnah. Again, what was the problem in our Mishnah? Why does the Mishnah make a distinction where the mum in a person's wife was discovered? If the mum was discovered when she is still in the father's house after Edison, or the mum was discovered when she's in the husband's house after full marriage. What difference does it make? Do we follow Cheskas Aguf or do we not? That's the only thing that should matter. So Rava now gives an answer as follows. So Rava says, Reisha kan nimtzu v'kan hoyu. The Reisha of the Mishnah, so because the mum was discovered in the father's house, so therefore that itself is reason for us to say that kan nimtzu, since it was discovered over here, and therefore v'kan hoyu. This is where the mum happened. Right? So in other words, the svara that he's saying is that even though there is a chazakah that she has, that probably the mum happened from now and not from before, right? And right, did not right after the edison exactly. There's always a cheskas haguf that says that the mum happened now, but nevertheless over here, since the mum was discovered, she has this mum already in the father's house. That is a svara to say that she probably had the mum in the father's house when she was living in the father's house from before, when she was living there from before the marriage. Kan nimtzu kan ayu. That's the svara that Rava says. Now, just to clarify 2 points regarding this answer that Rav is saying here. First of all, according to Rashi, the Gemara is actually not trying to say that our Mishnah would go according to Rabbi Yeshua. The Gemara is trying to say that our Mishnah would go according to Rabbi Gamliel. Okay? Rabbi Gamliel, Rashi says, we learned before in the first Perek, the halach is like Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel is the one that says that we follow Cheskas Haguf. Right? But over here, what Rabbi Gamliel is saying is that the true, usually we follow a cheskas haguf. And what's her cheskas haguf in this case? That she's born healthy without a mum. And therefore we'll assume that the mum happened after she got married. However, what Rabbi Gamliel is going to say in this case is, here it's different. Because the mum was discovered when she was still in the father's house, there's a svara to say that that mum was already there from before. From even before the marriage, maybe even from her birth or from some time before. Now, what exactly is the svara of this kan nimtzu kan hoyu? So here's the second point. There's a machlokes rishonim about this. It's not clear exactly what's this svara of kan nimtzu kan hoyu. Some rishonim want to go so far to say that it's also some kind of a chazakah. Just like there's a cheskas haguf that she's born healthy without a mum, kan nimtzu kan hoyu is also like a certain status. If you see when she's in the father's house that she has this mum, there's a certain status that we say that living in the father's house, she already had the mum, even before marriage, even before the edison. Correct. That's the way some rishonim interpret this. But Rashi seems to be saying different. Rashi says, if you look at the end of the Rashi, Rav Amar, Rashi says that there's a reyes to the chazakah. Isra, or even in the middle of the Rashi, Isra chazkasi. What Rashi says is, kan nimtzu kan hoyu is not a kind of a chazakah. Kan nimtzu kan hoyu is a svara to weaken cheskas haguf. Usually we follow cheskas haguf to say that the mum must have happened at a later point, after marriage. Here, when we see that she already had the mum when she was still in the father's house, that weakens the koyach of the usual chazakah, and once it weakens the koyach of the usual chazakah, we're not going to follow the cheskas mamain. So that's why Rabbi Gamliel over here in this case will say that the father is going to have to prove that the mum happened after the marriage. But now Seife, on the other hand, when the mum was discovered later on, once she already entered into the husband's home, so Nami over here as well, I'm going to say, kan nimtzu, kan hoyu, because it was discovered here in the husband's home, so I'll say that this is where it was found, and this is where it was, and therefore we're going to go back to the cheskas haguf, which says that before the marriage, she did not have a mum. And therefore the husband's going to have to prove that she did have a mum from before, because in such a case, I could follow the cheskas haguf. Abaye asks on this distinction, what did it say in the Seif of the Mishnah? That once she already entered into the husband's possession, she's fully married. So now the mum was discovered at that point. The husband's going to have to prove, and what is he going to have to prove? What does the Mishnah say? He's going to have to prove that the mum was there. She already had this mum even before Edison. Even before the first stage of marriage when she was in the father's house. Only then will the husband be able to say, then he could say that the whole marriage was a mistake and he doesn't have to give her a get or he doesn't have to give her a ksubah. Says the Gemara. Now, what do we see over here? Only if the husband proves that she already had the mum, not only in the father's house, but in the father's house before the Edison, then he can claim that it was a mekach tos. But if the husband proves that his wife had the mum after Edison in the father's house, that's not good enough. The husband will still have to give her a get or give her a ksubah because it was already after the marriage, after the Edison. But the question is, why isn't it enough for the husband, that is, to prove that the mum was found when she was in the father's house? He doesn't have to prove, according to what you said before, that there's a svara, kan nimtzu kan hoyu, he doesn't have to prove that she got this mum before the Edison in the father's house. Even if he proves it after the Edison in the father's house, but then I could already apply the svara we said. The moment he proves that she got the mum in the father's house, even after Edison, but we say that if she had the mum when she was in the father's house after Edison, she probably, or it could be she had the mum even before Edison. So why isn't that enough for him to be able to prove that it was a mekach tos? So we see here in the Seif of the Mishnah, not like the answer of Rava, or as Rashi says, we're going to have to go back to what the Gemara said before, that the Seif and the Reisha are two different Tanoim, they don't go together. Amalei, so Rav answers Abaye and says it's not the same thing. Mission is arsa, when it's after Edison, if the husband comes and proves that his wife had the mum in the father's house, but only after the Edison, so then that's not good enough for him to say that it's a mekach tos. Why? Mishum de'ikele meimar, because here we have another chazakeh that comes into play. What's that chazakeh? Chazakeh ein adam sheise b'kais. We have a chazakeh that a person does not drink from a cup Elim came baitkai, unless the person will inspect this and check it out before to make sure that the cup is clean to drink from. So therefore over here as well, we have a chazakah before a person marries his wife, he makes sure to find out about her if she had a mum or not. And v'hai, so therefore we say this individual ra v'nipayisu, he definitely made an inspection about this, and he must have known about this mum, and he was appeased, he accepted it. So therefore, there's a chazakah to say that it's not a mekach tos. So in other words, the fact that he proves that she had a mum when she was still in the father's house, we're not going to say kan nimsu kan hoyu, that automatically we know that the mum was there from before, and therefore the mekach is a mekach tos. Adarabah, there's another chazakah here that we're introducing now. A chazakah that a person would not marry his wife unless he knew about this before. So he must have accepted this. Frek the Gemara, wait a minute, if you have this new chazakah here, so if so, achalei tisaris nami, even if the husband will prove that his wife had the mum already before the Edison, let us say the same thing. Let us say that nevertheless the marriage takes effect because a husband will not marry his wife unless he saw this before and accepted it. So how does it ever help for a husband to prove that she had the mum from before the marriage? Why shouldn't we say there's a chazakah, he must have known about it and accepted it? Ella, so now the Gemara says, no, there's actually yet another chazakah. So let's halt cup over here. We have till here we had cheskas mamain. There's a cheskas aguf that she doesn't have a mum, but now we have another chazakah that a person does not marry his wife unless he checks it out before and will accepted it. Now the Gemara introduces a fourth chazakah. Ella amrinon, but over here we have another chazakah. Chazakah ein adam mefayis b'mumin. There's a chazakah that a person is not ready to accept mumin. If a person finds a mum in his wife, that's something that a person is not ready to live with, and therefore if he discovers a mum after he gets married, and if he could prove that the mum was there before the Edison, so we know that a man is not ready to live with mumin. So we have another chazakah. So we sort of have these contradictory chazakas over here regarding the status of this marriage, if it takes effect or not. So now the Gemara asks back. So if you're relying on this chazakah, so chanami chazakah ein adam mefayis b'mumin. So if the husband comes and says that he saw that his wife had a mum when she was still in the father's house, even if it was after the Edison, so why shouldn't that be good enough? Why shouldn't I say that probably if she had a mum at that point, the mum was probably there from before, as we said before, the svara kan nimtzu kan oyu, and we have a chazakah that the husband is not ready to accept this mum. So basically, what's going on over here? We have a cheskas aguf that says she had no mum from before. We have a chazakah that the husband probably knew and accepted it. We have a chazakah that a husband can't live with mumin. So when do we follow this chazakah? When do we follow that chazakah? What we see from the seif of the Mishnah is that it depends at what point the husband can prove she got the mum. If he can prove she got the mum before Edison, we'll accept that it's a mekach tos. If we can prove that she got the mum only after Edison, that's already too late. It will not be a mekach tos. So now the Gemara is going to explain this and take all these chazakahs and show why the halacha is so. Ella, so rather what we say is as follows. If all the husband can prove is that she had a mum in the father's house, but only after Edison. So then over here, mishum de'ikit tarti chazakeh. Over here, there are two chazakahs to her benefit. And what are they? Number one, hamad aguf chaskasai. There is the fact that she has a chazakah of her body, that she did not have mumin before the marriage. right? Because he can't prove that she did have before the marriage. He only brought a raya that she had a mum after the edison. So she still has a cheskas aguf. And also another chazaka. The chazaka ain't adam shaisa b'kais elam ken baitkei. The second chazaka we said before, even if you're going to say that she actually did have a mum from before, but nevertheless, we now have another chazaka that the husband saw this mum and he accepted it and he was appeased to marry her. And the husband saw and he was appeased. He agreed to marry her. So you have two chazakas to support her position. Now what are you going to say? There's a chazaka in the opposite, supporting his position. That he's going to say, chazaka ain't other mefayis b'mumin. There's a chazaka that a husband, a man, is not ready to accept mumin of his wife. Says the Gemara, have chode b'mokim tarti. Over here, this is one chazaka to his benefit against two chazakas to her benefit. She has both cheskas aguf and also a chazaka. Even if it's not that cheskas aguf is not true, she has another chazaka that her husband probably was baidiker from before. So she has two against one of his chazakas. Now Rashi adds another important clarification over here. You may think that the husband has a very important chazaka as well that the Gemara didn't mention, and that's the cheskas mamin. The money is in his pocket. Why don't we follow that chazaka? So Rashi says we're following Rabbi Gamliel's opinion now. According to Rabbi Gamliel, cheskas mamin in the face of cheskas aguf doesn't matter. So that does not tip the scale over here in his favor. So that's in the case when we discovered the mum, that he could prove that she had a mum after Edison. However, if the husband can come and prove that she had a mum from before the Edison, so now or there's a greatest leke. That chazaka to say that she has chaskas aguf, that she did not have a mum from before, that we don't have over here, because he proved that she had already a mum from before. So now all we're going to have is what chazaka does she have to prove that it is a marriage? That chazaka, that there's a chazaka that a person will not drink from a cup unless he checked it out before, and he must have seen and got appeased that he's ready to marry her. So she only has one chazaka working for her, that probably the husband saw and accepted this. So therefore we say, Adarabah. On the contrary, we have a chazaka that goes against that. Chazaka ein adam mefayis b'mumin. He could say, no, there's a chazaka that a husband is not ready to accept any mumin. And therefore, v'hamid mama in al-chaskasai. So in such a case, when the cheskas aguf does not exist here anymore, because he proved that she already had a mum before the marriage, so here it's only one chazaka against another chazaka. In such a case, Rabbi Gamliel will agree that we do follow cheskas mammon. There is no cheskas aguf here. So one against one chazaka, we will follow the cheskas mammon, which is the money is in his pocket, and therefore he does not have to pay her. Let me just clarify 2 points as the conclusion of this point that the Gemara is saying here, that the Taisus brings up. First of all, there's another kind of chazaka, which the Gemara does not mention at all, which also could make a difference, and that is cheskas pnuya. She has a chazaka that there is a chazaka here that she's not married. In the end of the day, part of the discussion over here is she married or is she not married? Does she need a get or not? Were the conditions of the marriage fulfilled or not? Why don't we say cheskas pnuya? Every girl has a chazaka from birth that she's not married. That chazaka the Gemara doesn't bring up. Taisvis the Rishayim discuss it. Just take note of that. Another point that over here the Gemara does not bring up is, before we mentioned the svara of kan nimtzu kan hayu, there's a svara even if the husband was able to prove that she had a mum in the father's house after marriage. So l'chayre, it's sort of too late because there's no cheskas. He didn't take away her cheskas aguf, but still there is a svara of kan nimtzu kan hayu, which means kan nimtzu kan hayu says there is a svara to say that she did probably have the mum from before, and that does take off the cheskas aguf. The Gemara doesn't bring that up here either, and there's a big arichas in the Rishayim and the Achrayim to explain why the Gemara does not address that. Okay, I know we're going very long over here, but I'd like to finish off the inyan until the 2 dots. So the Gemara now brings another answer. Rav Ashi gives another answer to explain the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa of our Mishnah. Again, the Reisha of our Mishnah was when the Mumim were discovered in the father's house, and the Seifa of the Mishnah was that the Mumim were discovered once she's fully married. Now, to remind you again, what's the difference over here? Who collects the Kesubos? When she's still in the father's house, and it's only the first stage of marriage, Edison, the father collects the Kesubos. She's still in the father's possession. If it's a full marriage and she's in the husband's house, if she would get divorced of him, she collects the Kesubos. So says the Gemara, Rav Ashi says, Reisha, in the Reisha of the Mishnah, where she's still in the father's house, so therefore the father is the one that's in a dentator with the husband. So mana la'abba biyotcha. Over here, if she comes and says, look, I still have a cheskas aguf, that I had no mumin, and therefore you have to pay the ksuba. Who is the ksuba being paid to? Not to her. It's being paid to the father. So she wants to use her cheskas haguf for the benefit of her father to be able to collect the ksuba from her husband. So what the Gemara is saying is, as according to Rashi's pshat, we cannot use her cheskas haguf in order for her to taina for the father to be able to collect the money from the husband. The cheskas haguf could only be used if she's collecting the money, not if the father is collecting the money. Now, you're asking a very good question. Why not? The Rishayim all ask on Rashi, what kind of a svara is this? I mean, the cheskas haguf is a true fact, whether it's her collecting the money or the father collecting the money. It's very difficult to understand what Rashi says. The Ramban, other Rishonim say that the svara of the Gemara is not that you can't use her cheskas haguf for the father. The svara is that if it's a dintayre between her and her husband, she's saying a tainis body. She's 100% sure about what she's saying, at what point she got the mum. But the father that wants the money, he doesn't have any tainis body. He doesn't really know 100% at what point. He can't say with certainty that I know for a fact when, not necessarily does he know this. So therefore, over here, the Gemara is speaking about a case where the father doesn't know, and he doesn't have the tainis body. If he doesn't have a tainis body, we cannot use her cheskas haguf, because the koyach of the cheskas haguf is only by her when she has the tainis body. Okay, we had this concept also before when we were learning this in the first Pedic. That's the Rishayim's pshat in the Gemara. Now the Sefer, in the Sefer of the Mishnah, when she's fully in the possession of the husband, so over here the dintayr is between her and her husband. The money doesn't go to the father, the ksuba money goes to her. So over here, money libiyatcha. She's saying that the ksuba of the money that you have, it belongs to me, so it's between her and her husband. So over here, she can use her cheskas haguf to collect the money for herself. That's why over here, her cheskas haguf is stronger. So that's the difference between the Reisha and the Sefer. The Gemara asks him this, so he asked Rav Ashi in his answer. Ma'id Rav Meir, and Abraisa, it says that Rav Meir agrees, that if it's a kind of mum that we know that it's very likely that it came from the father's house, that the father's going to have to bring a raya that she did not have the mum there from before. So simply, this is speaking about a kind of a mum that, this is the way the Gemara understands this now, this is a kind of mum that there's no way that the husband would have known about this, there's no way that anybody would have known about this, and therefore if we see now that she has the mum, we are going to we say probably this mum was there from before, and elamai, no one noticed it because it was in a hidden area. So, but the question is, why though do we say that in such a case we're probably going to say that it was there from before, and the father's going to have to prove that it was not? But v'amai manali biyat chohu. According to Rav Ashi's pshat, the only thing we have to look at is who is the dintayre between. If it's the dintayre between the father and the husband, we can't use cheskas haguf, so the husband wins. If it's a dintayre between her and the husband, so then she could use the cheskas haguf. Over here, in this case, she's already fully married. Even if it's a kind of mum that we expect that he wouldn't have known about, and it could have been there from before, but the fact is, it's a dintayre between her and her husband. So we should say the svara that we just said before, that in such a case we could follow cheskas haguf. When it's her speaking, it's her dintayre, we could follow her cheskas haguf. So why not? So the Gemara gives a different shot what it means, a mum that came from the father's house. What are we talking about over here? We see that his wife has an extra finger. This is a kind of mum. There's no cheskas haguf for this. She was born with this extra finger. This is not something that could have developed later. It's such a kind of a case that the Braisa says that the father is going to have to bring a raya. But the Gemara asks him that, my raya maisi. What kind of a raya is he going to bring? If there's no cheskas haguf, and there's no question that she was born this way. You see, she was born with an extra finger. So he's saying, let the father bring a raya for what? He's going to bring a raya that she didn't have that extra finger before. She was born with the extra finger. So the Gemara says, raya the rav in ipayisu. The Braisa means to say is, let the father bring a raya that the husband noticed this extra finger. He saw it. He commented about it, and Edom were there. And Edom are going to say that he saw the extra finger, and then it's not going to be a mekach. So that's what the Braisa meant. So it's not a question on Rav Ashi's pshat.
And if he didn't notice the finger?
So it's a mekach tos, because he didn't know.